Imagine a world where questions changed everything. Welcome to ancient Greece. From sunlit islands and sparkling seas to legendary temples and bustling cities. Here, people invented democracy, explored philosophy, and created breathtaking art. They mapped the stars, unlocked the secrets of science, and celebrated the power of sport. Their myths still echo in our stories. Their ideas shape our world. Join me as we uncover the wonders, mysteries, and timeless lessons of ancient Greece. Keep watching. The journey is just beginning. To understand ancient Greece is to first understand its landscape. This wasn't a single, unified empire sprawling across vast, open plains. Instead, rugged mountains sliced the land into isolated valleys, and a brilliant sea was dotted with countless islands. This very geography forged its people's destiny. From this fragmented terrain arose a unique political structure, a collection of fiercely independent city-states, or polis. Each polis was a world unto itself, with its own laws, army, and identity. There was Athens, the cradle of democracy and a burgeoning naval power. Its eternal rival, Sparta, a militaristic society defined by discipline and austerity. Wealthy Corinth, a bustling hub of commerce controlling the vital isthmus, and powerful Thebes, a constant contender for dominance in the heart of Greece. These city-states were often bitter rivals, their histories written in the blood of countless conflicts, most famously the devastating Peloponnesian War that pitted Athens against Sparta in a struggle for the soul of Greece. Yet for all their division, they were bound by invisible threads. They shared a common language, and every Greek child was raised on the epic tales of Homer's Iliad and Odyssey. They worshipped the same pantheon of gods, making pilgrimages to sacred sites like the Oracle at Delphi. And most remarkably, every 4 years they would declare a sacred truce, laying down their arms to gather at Olympia. Here, their finest athletes would compete not for gold or silver, but for the simple glory of an olive wreath and the honor of their home polis. This constant, dynamic tension between fierce competition and shared cultural identity created a uniquely fertile ground for innovation. This explosion of creativity was centered in the public spaces of the polis. In the bustling agora, the marketplace, it wasn't just goods that were exchanged. Here, amidst the merchants and artisans, citizens gathered to discuss politics, conduct business, and listen to philosophers challenge their most basic assumptions. It was the beating heart of public life. In the great stone theaters, audiences didn't just watch plays, they participated in a civic ritual. The invention of tragedy and comedy allowed them to grapple with the most profound questions of human existence: justice, fate, and morality. And rising above it all, on the Acropolis, stood the grand temples. The Parthenon in Athens was more than a home for a goddess. It was a breathtaking statement in marble, a declaration of Athenian ambition, a celebration of their victory over the Persians, and a testament to their devotion to beauty, harmony, and mathematical perfection. In these vibrant arenas, the very foundations of our modern world were being laid, stone by brilliant stone. So, buckle up. Our space-time odyssey is just beginning, and our first major destination is the epicenter of this intellectual earthquake: Athens. Here, on this small peninsula, a society dared to think differently. They dared to question everything. Why are we here? How should we govern ourselves? What is the nature of truth? This relentless spirit of inquiry, this shift from mythological explanation, mythos, to rational argument, logos, would change the world forever. They gave us the tools we still use to build our future. They pioneered democratia, rule by the people. A radical, imperfect experiment, yes, but one founded on the revolutionary principle that citizens should have a voice in their own destiny. We'll walk the Nix Hill, where Athenian citizens cast their votes. We'll hear the echoes of philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle as they debate justice and reality in the Agora and the Academy, laying the groundwork for Western philosophy and science. They gave us the formal rules of logic, the Hippocratic oath in medicine, and the pursuit of harmony and proportion in art and architecture. These weren't just abstract ideas. They were practical tools for understanding the world and our place in it. That is why this journey into the past is also a journey into ourselves. To walk the streets of ancient Athens is to trace the origins of our own institutions, our deepest values, and our ways of thinking. The marble may be weathered and the temples may lie in ruins, but the intellectual and cultural architecture they built remains. It is the scaffolding upon which much of our own world is constructed. Our modern world still echoes with their questions, and we continue to wrestle with their answers. What is the nature of justice? What is the meaning of a good life? What is the duty of a citizen? These are not relics of a distant past. They are the living, breathing questions that the Greeks first dared to ask, and that we are all, in our own way, still trying to answer. Imagine a government not ruled by a king, not by a tyrant, not by a god, but by the people. Before this radical idea, your life was often subject to the whims of a single person. An emperor, a pharaoh, a monarch who held the power of life and death, whose authority was absolute and unquestionable. The world was a tapestry of empires built on command and obedience, where the individual was a subject, not a citizen. Then, on the rocky hills of a bustling city-state, a new possibility began to take shape. It was born in 5th century BC Athens, a place humming with trade, philosophy, and fierce debate. And they gave it a name: democracy, from demos, the people, and kratos, power, the rule of the people. This wasn't just a word, it was a revolutionary declaration. It proposed that power should not descend from the heavens or be inherited by blood, but that it should rise from the citizenry itself. The central square, the agora, was its crucible, where merchants haggled, philosophers questioned reality, and the idea of self-rule was forged in public conversation. It was a breathtaking experiment. On a hill called the Nix, as many as 6,000 citizens would gather. These were ordinary men, farmers, potters, merchants, and aristocrats, sitting together under the open sky. They didn't elect representatives to decide for them. They were the government. They debated everything: laws, taxes, public works, and the most momentous decision a state can make: whether to go to war. They voted by a simple show of hands, and a potter's vote counted just as much as a general's. This was direct democracy in action. You were there. Your voice mattered. But this placed immense responsibility on each individual. To participate meaningfully, you had to be informed, engaged, and willing to dedicate your time. The system was messy, loud, and dangerously susceptible to the power of persuasion. Great orators like Pericles could inspire the city to build monuments for the ages. But it also gave rise to demagogues, who could whip the assembly into a frenzy with fear and flattery, leading to disastrous decisions. The art of rhetoric was a powerful weapon, and a skilled speaker could sway the fate of the nation in a single afternoon, a lesson that echoes through the ages. And for all its brilliance, this democracy was profoundly exclusive. The demos was a small fraction of the population. It excluded all women, who were confined to the private sphere. It excluded the entire enslaved population, whose labor was the engine of the Athenian economy. And it excluded foreigners, the metics, who lived and worked in Athens, but had no political rights. In truth, only about 10 to 20% of the people had a voice. It was a fragile experiment, a candle of limited freedom in a world of absolute rulers. Athens itself would eventually fall, but the light of its core idea was never extinguished. The principles of accountability, of public debate, of a shared destiny governed by the people themselves, proved too powerful to die. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle dissected and critiqued democracy, and in doing so, they preserved its memory in their writings. The idea survived not as a kingdom, but as a text, a question, a possibility waiting to be rediscovered. For centuries it lay dormant, a whisper in ancient texts. Then it sprouted anew. It influenced the Magna Carta's limits on a king's power. It was reignited during the Enlightenment, as thinkers like John Locke argued for the consent of the governed. This rediscovered fire fueled the American and French revolutions, which took the Athenian model and adapted it for large modern nations, creating the system of representative democracy we know today. The idea blossomed, transforming from a city-state experiment into a force that would shape the entire world. Today, the legacy of Demos and Kratos is alive, though its form has changed. It is imperfect, constantly challenged by apathy and misinformation. But it lives every time you cast a vote, speak at a town hall, or question those in power. It lives when journalists hold leaders accountable and when citizens assemble to demand change. This 2,500-year-old conversation, born on the sun-baked hills of Athens, continues. And it still depends on us to participate, to listen, to argue, and to choose our shared path forward. But the Greek genius for organization wasn't just for politics and war. They applied it to the very soul of their community, creating something entirely new, a formal space for collective emotion. They invented theater. It wasn't mere entertainment. It was a civic and religious ritual, born from the wild festivals of Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, and transformation. In vast, open-air amphitheaters, carved into the very hillsides, an entire society would gather. Here, under the open sky, thousands of citizens, rich and poor alike, sat side by side on stone tiers. They weren't just watching a story, they were participating in a grand public debate on the most profound questions of human existence. They came together to collectively grapple with the nature of justice, the inescapable power of fate, the complexities of love, and the universal sorrow of loss. The stage became a laboratory for the human condition. Two great forms emerged: tragedy and comedy. In tragedy, larger-than-life figures, their faces obscured by expressive masks, confronted their destinies. A chorus, representing the voice of the community, would sing and dance, commenting on the action and guiding the audience's emotions. The heart of tragedy was the concept of the hero's fatal flaw, often pride or hubris, that would lead to their downfall. The audience, watching this inevitable collapse, would experience a powerful purging of pity and fear, leaving them with a deeper understanding of themselves and the world. Sophocles' masterpiece, N, poses the ultimate tragic question. If our fate is already written, what is the point of our struggle? It explores the terrifying idea that the relentless pursuit of truth can lead to our own destruction, asking how much control we truly have over our lives. But the Greeks also understood the power of laughter. In the hands of playwrights like Aristophanes, comedy was a political weapon. In his play, the women of Greece go on a sex strike to force their husbands to end a war. It was a brilliant and hilarious critique of masculine aggression and political folly. This wasn't just for laughs, it was a form of public accountability, where the most powerful figures in society could be openly mocked. This same pursuit of human truth transformed Greek art. Early sculpture was stiff and formal, beautiful but lifeless. But as Greek thought evolved, so did their art. Sculptors became obsessed with capturing not just the likeness of a person, but their essence. They moved from rigid poses to a revolutionary new stance called, where the figure's weight is shifted onto one leg, creating a dynamic, natural S-curve in the body. Suddenly, cold stone seemed to breathe. Marble became supple flesh. They mastered the illusion of movement, freezing a discus thrower at the peak of his power, or carving drapery so fine it seemed to ripple in an unseen breeze. It was energy captured in time. Underpinning all of this was a core principle. This wasn't just about balance, but about the perfect mathematical harmony of all parts to the whole. The sculptor Polykleitos even wrote a treatise describing the ideal proportions of the human body. This obsession with ratio and order was applied to everything, from a simple vase to the majestic design of a temple like the Parthenon. Beauty was a reflection of a divine mathematical order, and this legacy was so powerful that it would echo for millennia. Centuries later, when Renaissance masters like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci sought to break free from the flat, symbolic art of the Middle Ages, they looked back to the Greeks. They rediscovered the power of realism, the beauty of proportion, and the profound dignity of the human form, igniting a new golden age of art that was built on the foundations laid in ancient Greece. Every 2 years, the world stops. Athletes gather to push human strength, speed, and agility. In 776 BCE, the original Olympic Games began, sacred to Zeus. A sacred truce halted wars so all could travel safely to compete. Athletes sought honor, not riches, an olive crown and eternal fame. Soldier-citizen skills tested in foot races, pentathlon, discus, javelin, long jump, running and wrestling, boxing and the pancration, the ultimate trials of body and will. After centuries of silence, the Games revived in 1896, again in Athens. Today, the flame connects us to ancient Olympia, peace, excellence, and shared humanity. When we cheer, we join a ritual born in Greece, still binding rivals together, if only for a moment. Before the Greeks, storms and harvests were the moods of gods. In Ionia, a new thinker emerged, unsatisfied with divine answers. They asked why, seeking natural causes through observation and reason. Philosophy, love of wisdom, was born. The pre-Socratics proposed daring ideas about matter, change, and reality. Thales guessed all was water. Wrong, but revolutionary. Reason over myth. No idea was sacred. Claims needed logic and evidence. Mythos gave way to logos, igniting Western philosophy and science. The audacious belief that unaided human minds can understand the universe changed the world and how we think. 3 giants emerged: Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Socrates wrote nothing, but his relentless questions exposed ignorance. The unexamined life is not worth living. He probed justice, virtue, morality, making enemies for challenging comfortable beliefs. Tried and executed, he became a martyr for free thought. Plato founded the Academy and wrote dialogues, arguing our world is a shadow of higher forms. Aristotle studied the tangible world, biology to logic, seeking knowledge by observation and deduction. He wrote about nearly everything. For centuries, his works were authoritative foundations. Together, they built the framework of Western thought, asking how to live, what is real, and how we know. Greek architecture remains one of their most visible legacies. Temples were masterpieces of design and precision, expressions of balance and beauty. 3 orders: Doric, simple, sturdy, powerful; Ionic, slender and elegant; Corinthian, ornate acanthus crowns. Architects corrected optical illusions with curved steps and subtly bulging columns. Their language of form endures, from Washington, D.C. to capitals and museums worldwide. Columns, pediments, and grandeur, born in Greece, spoken everywhere. Built for the gods, the Greeks forged an architectural language humanity still uses, building quite literally for eternity. Long before science, the Greeks told stories, myths that explained the world and our place in it. Gods were mighty, but human in passions, jealousy, anger, love. Heroes faced trials that defined courage, honor, and the tragedy of hubris. Passed orally for generations, then written in the Iliad and Odyssey, bedrock of Greek culture. Their myths were the television, the movies, and the internet of their day. They offered a moral compass and a shared identity, meaning amid chaos. Myth infuses our culture, from planet names to brands and popular stories today. These tales endure because they echo timeless struggles: fate, glory, home. In a vast universe, myths gave purpose. stories as constellations guiding the human heart. The same spirit that birthed philosophy ignited science. The universe, a knowable order, discoverable by human reason. Pythagoreans found math in music and shape, most famously the Pythagorean theorem. Euclid's elements set the model, axioms to proofs, logic as the engine of knowledge. Greek astronomers mapped the heavens with remarkable accuracy. Aristarchus proposed the sun-centered system, centuries ahead of its time. Eratosthenes measured Earth's circumference using shadows and geometry. Hippocrates sought natural causes of disease, careful observation, and ethical practice. The Hippocratic Oath endures. In math, astronomy, and medicine, the Greeks gave a method: observe, reason, test, the foundation of modern science. We've journeyed through Greece, democracy, art, philosophy, science. Why care today? Because their ideas surround us. Every vote, every play, every experiment, every oath, Greek legacies living now. The Greeks taught us the universe is knowable, from atom to galaxy. They championed reason, logic, and debate, questioning as a path to truth. They weren't perfect. Slavery and exclusion shadowed their society. We must acknowledge flaws, yet ideals of reason, beauty, freedom, and human potential inspire progress. Our civilization is a conversation they helped start, handing us a toolkit for thinking and living. A few voices in a small place lit a light that still shines, guiding us on our journey into the unknown.